Different words describe different people. But in the eyes of the law, there's one that fits us all. Human right number 7. We're all equal before the law. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
I'm absolutely thrilled to be doing this particular episode because in this one, we are going to be looking at something really close to my heart, community theatre. Since about 2007, I have been part of an amateur group in Cambridge called the Pied Pipers Musical Theatre Club, and it has been a wonderful place to meet people. I've met my fiance there. We've made so many friends. And that is one of the things about community theatre that I've always loved. It is essentially equality as an art, isn't it? It's people all coming together, making friends very quickly, usually under a lot of pressure, and then going ahead to produce something wonderful that even more people come. And it doesn't matter where they come from. They all are coming along and feeling like everybody at a football match, but like they are on the same side. But the two guests that we have with us today have gone even further with their use of community theatre and the things that they've done. Because of the fact that we are trying to be as equal as possible here, it's really difficult deciding who gets to be introduced first. So I've plumped for alphabetical order, which means that hopefully when I press a button, I'm going to see Erika up on the screen. Hello, Erika.
Hello.
Again. Wonderful to have you here with us now, Erika. I know that you are an actor and you are a voice actor, but I'm going to let you explain all that you do because you do it far better than I do.
Well, I would describe myself as an actor, a voice actor, a director, workshop leader. Yes, lots of different things as well in the work that I've done.
That is wonderful. And I've had the pleasure of working with you on a couple of podcasts. Yep. It's always a pleasure. You definitely have the director within you. But I'm now going to introduce us to our not second guest. So if Erika here is guest number 1, Melanie here is guest number A. Melanie is joining us all the way from really sunny LA. So it's something like 20 past 10 in the morning there. Am I right, Melanie?
Absolutely. And it's hot. We're coming to you from Val Kilmer's Hell Mill Studios in Los Angeles, wow. Where we have our home. And I'm a director, an actor, not so much anymore, a costume designer, and I am the founder and artistic director of InnerCity Shakespeare Ensemble. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary.
Sorry, your 10th anniversary?
Yes.
Oh, wow, fantastic. I didn't know that. Oh, there's a double celebration then. Well, we'll find out more about InnerCity Shakespeare very soon. But I wanted to start by asking you both what equality means to you. And this time I'll let Melanie go first. What does equality mean to you?
Well, as an African American in these United States, and it's kind of a citizen of the world, I think that equality means that you have access to whatever doors you want to pursue your interests, your talents, and your passions in the same way that everyone else does, regardless of race, class, gender, sexuality, anything like that. So I think it's just being able to open a door. For African Americans in this country, we just not celebrated, but we're just commemorated 400 years of chattel slavery. Started in 1619, and this was 2019 last year. So it's a constant battle to find equality in a world that thinks that you are there for a particular purpose and less than other people. So equality is a battle.
Well, you sort of touched upon two areas there about how it is supposed to be an open door, and I guess an automatic door as well. That's what we want it to be. But you've also highlighted that it is a battle. It's a cause to strive for. So, Erika, can you add to that?
Yeah, I would say that as well as being a battle, it is also an ideal that we strive for as well. So within all of us, we look to try and, as Melanie said, we're looking to pursue passions, we're looking to pursue creativity without barriers. So all of us as human beings who are deeply, some of us deeply spiritual, some of us deeply creative, all of us, we strive to better ourselves, and we do that as one together. We move forward together as one.
Brilliant. I wonder though, how long do you both think that humans have been doing this? How long has this been the ideal of humankind, would you say?
Oh.
Melanie, do you want to have a go at that one?
Yeah, I make this little joke that we've had inequality with the second guy trying to get into the cave from human existence, from the first time there were humans on Earth. And there is some kind of natural thing that shouldn't be there. We should be welcoming to everyone. That's the spirit that I live with. That's the spirit that artists live with. But I think it's a human issue, and it makes me sad sometimes, especially when I'm dealing with remarkable children who don't understand not having access to what their heart and their talents say they should have.
Yeah, that's a lovely image. The idea of inequality existing the moment. Well, lovely is obviously not the right word to put in that situation. I mean, it's a very clear image. The idea that yes, the moment a caveman decided, or a cave woman even decided that so and so could not come in.
See, I was going to go the other way. Melanie made the joke about the first cave to come in, and I was going to say, it's the first caveman to say to the first cave woman, "Stay home."
Oh,
exactly. But actually, cave people were more egalitarian than we are because they needed everybody to survive. It is society,
community,
excluded people, and law that has excluded people. But
yeah.
I think the more I travel the world, indigenous people they have, much more loving attitude towards humans. And that's why colonialism was so easy to achieve, because when you go to indigenous countries, they welcome you in. And if you have a pernicious intent, then you can take over that culture quite easily, I guess. I don't know if it's easy, but it's easy. People are wary of you.
I see what you mean. There's a sort of double edge to it, that on the one hand, you want to be welcoming, you want to have a society where everyone feels that they can be a part of it. And yet that does make it susceptible to people to come in and tear it down, put themselves in charge, rule the masses with religion or just dogma, whatever it is that they're bringing along. And of course, this has been going on throughout history. Certainly the moment we got into any kind of society where there were structures, there were people who considered themselves in charge, people who had control of the grain stores, I guess. That's when this all began. We started seeing this shift between that lovely egalitarian society of the Stone Age to the hierarchical society that developed, I suppose, to what we had even now in some parts of the world. But you can still see that original human nature, that strive and that ideal for equality pushing through. And we've talked all the way through this series about how, yes, we've got a long way to go. We are, however, on a sort of upward trajectory, and it's a bit of a bumpy one. It's definitely a lot better now than it was 1,000 years ago. Even before 1,000 years ago, if you remember the Youth for Human Rights International little historical video that they've done, they have said how even the Romans had tablets with laws for equal rights and equal justice. We don't really remember them or incorporate them into anything in the Western world now, but 1,000 years ago, a man managed to come to power in the island of Britain and decided that actually for him, for uniting and keeping his country together, he would go back to the idea of rights for the people. A few weeks ago, we were in York with Dr. Charles Inslee and MJ Tro, and I returned to meet with Mai, this time in the city of Cambridge, to look a little bit before the document that Canute put out as the Law of Equal Justice, sort of like the AGM notes of Canute and his council while they were putting that law together. And it was a real insight into how it all came about. So again, this interview was recorded before the pandemic, before any lockdown social distancing restrictions. But I'd like to share with you now our interview with MJ Tro in Corpus Christi, Cambridge. We are here this time in the Corpus Christi Library, which is in Cambridge. This is the Parker Library, named after Archbishop Matthew Parker. And with us we have our two historical experts, first of whom you've met before, MJ Tro. And with us today is Dr. Alex Devine, who is going to introduce today's document. Can you share with us where this has come from, Alex?
Yes, certainly. So this is a composite medieval manuscript. There are three separate sections, all written during the 11th century and bound together once they come into Matthew Parker's possession. And he adds a table of contents at the very beginning and calls them collectively Saxon. And the Miscellany paginates it, goes through, puts his mark on it literally by putting page numbers in and going throughout, including on page 126. Then, as it is today, Leges Canuti, laws of Canute.
The laws of Canute. And do you know roughly what sort of year this would have been written down?
Yes, so this is the oldest portion of the manuscript, in, as I say, in three parts, mid to second quarter of the 11th century. So this is very early. So this is, if not contemporary to 1018, then very, very close to it. Very early after that.
So am I right in thinking this isn't actually the law codes themselves? These are sort of notes that were scribbled down during a meeting that would eventually become the code?
Yes, that's entirely correct. Yes, these are drafted versions, and the crackling of the pages, not as dreadful as it sounds or harmful for the volumes. This beautiful, beautiful script, steady and uniform throughout. It's only 4 pages long. Yes, you certainly may, yes.
This is amazing. Does it feel like you're touching something that is 1,000 years old?
Yeah, it's just incredible.
And so we think as well that Wulfstan's hands could have also been touching these pages.
Absolutely. The collective DNA in this volume.
Yes. Extraordinarily rich.
Just incredible.
And of course, Wulfstan was a name that we heard about when we were up in York just a little while ago. So we'll chat about him in just a moment. But before we do, Mai, I wanted to ask you, why are you so interested in Canute? Justify your existence in this video. Why are you here?
Thank you very much. He's such a character that I see as a bridge, really, between two civilizations. And in a way, two different times. He comes to the country as a Viking thug. He's a conqueror. He's a bully boy. He's after loot, women, song, whatever. But he becomes a great king. And that is an enormous transition. The early Viking raids were simply raids. They came to steal and run away again. And of course we have the great army that settles, we have the Danelaw, we have the English fighting back under Alfred the Great. Canute belongs to that later generation where another great army comes in 1013, and by 1016 Canute is king. But now he has to rule. And it's not just a matter of beating people up and killing them, which he's very good at. He now has to cope with the complexities of a government. And that means laws, and that means the church. This man doesn't begin life as a Christian, he became a Christian. So he works with Wolston, for example, to create a system of laws that will both build on an earlier tradition, that's an earlier world, and looking forward to a new one. So I see him as a very, very complex character. And I know one expert refers to him as a genius, and I don't think that's far short of it. I think he was.
And that expert is Charles.
That expert is Charles.
So we will talk to him about that next. And of course, when we're looking at these laws, and they're in their sort of draft form here, there's one key phrase down here. Would you mind just reading that out for us, Alex, as our Old English expert?
And from now on, let each man, whether poor or rich, Guilcha ye erma ye erina, be entitled to his customary rights is the key phrase here, and it's for Crises Huerta Beona.
So yes, we can already start to see here, even though this was probably about 2 years before the letter that we were looking at in York. Already we're seeing some sort of sense of there being equality. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor; everybody's going to be bound to this law. But Maya, you were saying this was probably as much Wulfstan's influence as it was Canute's own. So can you tell us a little bit more about who this Wulfstan was and how he came to be basically Canute's advisor?
Yeah, Wulfstan was almost certainly the son of a priest. So he would have been literate, he would have been highly articulate, he would have understood the laws of the past, and that idea of the continuity, the sense of history. Here is a man who ultimately became Archbishop of York, and he was essential, I think, to Canute, because Canute didn't know England. Okay, he'd spent 3 years wandering around the north largely, killing people. But as for how the country ran, what an Englishman was, and I'm aware that's a very difficult concept. That's very tricky, and Wulfstan would have been enormously helpful in that sense. He would have referred to earlier laws of, for example, King Edgar, and he would have been really, I think, controlling Canute, because I don't think Canute was controllable, but he would have been steering him in the right direction, a direction of peace, of harmony, talking about the different groups, the rich and the poor. You've got almost a sort of class element there, and I think Wulfstan is vital. In a lot of the literature of this period, you can see Wulfstan's hand. It is very, very clear. He's a fire and brimstone preacher. His phraseology is absolutely marvellous, and of course he refers to his works as the sermons of the wolf, Lupus, because of Wulfstan. It's a wonderful name to be able to play with, and there's something highly dramatic about that. The sermons of the wolf. In other words, listen to this because it's pretty important stuff.
Biting stuff. Absolutely. Now we know that Wulfstan came from down in Wessex, down in the south. But is the fact that he spends so much time up in the north relevant?
Yes, I think that's probably true. An awful lot of these laws start off, if you like, with Wessex. But then they say this also applies to Mercia, which is the Midlands. It also applies to Northumbria, which is the north, by which time you are very definitely into the Danelaw. And we're talking about a generational thing. We're talking about Danes who had been here for quite a time. They'd settled, they'd intermarried with English families, they had children that were, if you like, although it's a simplification, half English, half Dane. Canute comes along with his army. They are literally fresh off a boat, and therefore they bring a newer element to it. But nevertheless, there is a recognition, there is a commonality of language, of law, of outlook in the north, and I think that that's extremely important. That what Canute with Wolfston is able to do is to meld that, really. So what we have is an England perhaps not yet all-inclusive, perhaps not yet one nation in the modern sense, but we're getting away from the them and us of the Danelaw and the South.
Absolutely. And of course, one really big clue of this, I think, was on the next page along, when they are talking about various saints' days. If you could read that out for us, Alex.
The councillors have decided that the festival of St. Edward, Sancte Eduardas Missedaga, shall be celebrated throughout England on the 18th of March.
So what we're seeing there, of course, is again the reference to a kingdom of England, or a land of Englaland, which... am I right in saying this is the first time outside of Ethelred's treaty with the Danish that we actually see that anywhere near a code of law?
Yes, yes, it is. In terms of the law, yes, that's absolutely right. Yes.
So we're starting to see, instead of thinking about kings of the West Saxons who rule Mercia and East Anglia and Wessex, and everyone in Northumbria has to obey us as well. Mm-hmm. It's now sort of levelling the playing field, and saying everybody, north, south, rich, poor.
Sure. Yep.
Grand.
Yeah. It's just extraordinary to me that we've got this at all. If you think of laws today, passed by our modern government, green papers, white papers, computers, yawn, and then here it is in one volume. Okay, it's not the laws themselves, but it's pretty close. And the fact that this was compiled in the 1020s, I still find it unbelievable. I mean, as an historian, I've been talking about books like this seemingly forever, but I'm still in total awe of standing so close to them. I actually daren't touch it. I admire you guys for doing it, but I don't want to do that.
Are you sure? Because that's Wolfston's you're connecting with there.
Oh, all right then.
There you are. You've done it. You've managed it. Well, thank you again for joining us for yet another glance into the past and the story of Kingdom 1000. Our next video will be from another Corpus Christi, but this time the one in Oxford. No rivalry?
No, not at all.
Fantastic. So we'll see you there. Well, there you go. Wasn't that absolutely fascinating? However, it was still a council, wasn't it, of white men, basically, which... given everything that we've already been talking about, kind of shows to us that it has taken a long time to get where we are now. But I love the fact that I'm here talking about community theatre with two women, both of whom have been in the position of power, that is director. So I think we've got to start with you again, Melanie, because I know that InnerCity Shakespeare was... You founded it as well, didn't you?
Yeah, it was founded about 10 years ago. I spent my life in theater. I've directed, it was counting this one, about 100 plays in my time, all different kinds, children's plays, school plays, community, professional plays. And now I'm moving into film and television. We produced some prize-winning films, and we always are committed to the idea of giving access to this entertainment industry to people that don't get it. No matter how talented you are, getting access is a real problem. Even getting a chance to be in a play, especially Shakespeare, if you're Black or brown or female, is a major accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely. But there was a hint given to me in some of our earlier email correspondence about your reason for setting it up. There was something that had that inspired you in the first place, your own personal journey.
Well, I come from Compton, California, and it's not what people think. I was ill as a child, and I was homeschooled, and my grandmother was a college professor. So I'm one of the few people that you'll ever meet, Black, white, green, or otherwise, who has read, performed in, directed, or designed every single Shakespeare, including Coriolanus and Timons of Athens, which nobody does.
Have you done costumes for them all as well?
Well, I studied costumes in Shakespeare companies. I'm a tall woman. You can't tell. I'm 6 feet tall. Nothing ever fit. I'm almost 6 feet wide on some days. So I learned to sew as and company to have. I want my kids to always have the best. There's a poet, Gwendolyn Brooks, who says, "What shall we give our children who are poor?" And she says, we will give them velvet and velvety velour. So our company, and there's some pictures of our company performances on the screen. I did the research, I've studied, I've mentored with some amazing costumers. Like, for example, this is from Romeo and Juliet, and here's our design of the costume. And then here's the actual costume. And it looks very expensive, but the jacket is built on a suit jacket, and this is leftover fabric from some pretty out there curtains. The whole thing looks I'm proud of it. It looks fabulous. It costs about $30, but you learn how to make it work by doing the research. In the picture up at the top, the children did their own costumes. It was a summer production of Midsummer Night's Dream. So we gave them a bunch of cloth and unitards and straps of fabric, and the fairies created their own costumes. So costumes are important for me. I love them.
Where do the kids come from who end up acting in your pieces?
Well, we started in South Central Los Angeles in Washington Prep High School. And if you don't know that area, it's currently the site of many demonstrations from a young person that was killed in LA 2 days ago. It's in the 77th precinct of LA. And if you don't know what that is the highest gang area in LA. And there was a high school with no theater program, so we started there. We got help with the British Academy of Film and Television Arts. And we chose Shakespeare because I love it. I've studied it. I performed in it, and there's no royalties. And that becomes important for theater directors. And as someone who's done a lot of the jobs, I'm a 6-foot Black woman. I'm never going to play Juliet, even though I could. But I'm never going to be cast as Juliet. So I find my ways to be involved in theater. So our kids, we started in the school area, and then we realized diversity was important, that these kids had never had any contact with kids of different races. We also use mentors. And so we put a call out on some of the platforms in LA to get volunteers and actors. So we have kids this year when we started from all over LA County, and then a lot of college kids, because it's in LA, you have to pay to play. That's terrible. A lot of the theaters in LA, you have to pay $500 to be in the show. Sounds crazy. LA County has 10,000 theaters, but in the area where we work, which is South Central Los Angeles, there's only 10. 2 of them are equity theaters that we can't afford to be in. So we just put the word out, churches, schools, arts, websites, everyone. We're doing Shakespeare, and we have the kids come in and audition. But when we audition, them, we're looking for a certain kind of kid. A kid that has stressors in their life, single parents, different ethnicities, people who you would not think would want to do Shakespeare, but they just want to perform. So we have these incredible mentors from England, from all over the industry, from colleges, and every kid gets a mentor, and then the mentors work with them on the text. So we have become this weird, diverse community project, and we half the kids, and I think about half of the students in Romeo and Juliet had never done a play before. So we had some older students who were graduating from college who really like our company and wanted to be in it. So they served two purposes. They were actors and they were mentors. And so we just put the word out in churches wherever and say, y'all come, and they do.
That's brilliant. Because I suppose, given the conversation that we were having earlier, gang culture is essentially trying to perpetuate that model, isn't it, of people being in charge, other people being subjugated. You do what I say, you listen to me. Whereas the community that you've tried to build up through InnerCity sounds like the kind where it's obviously welcoming, like you've already mentioned. It's inviting to all, and it's there to entertain. So you see that you're getting to feel part of the wider community. And the whole mentor-apprentice dichotomy, I mean, that is not the same as manager and employee. That is very much a question of, I'm here to help you to become a better person. So it's very, very equal by the sounds of it.
Well, I think it's also important to realize that a gang member is just a child, and to characterize them as, what do they call us, your serial predators. A gang member is a child that society didn't serve, and they're looking for family, they're looking for community. And we have gang members, former gang members now, that are in our company, have been in it for 10, 12 years, and now in graduate school, coming back as mentors. So growing up in Compton, being around that and having the worst, my father was murdered by a young gang member as part of accordion. And they're bigger forces outside of it. Living in Compton, we didn't grow any drugs. We don't, but suddenly they were there. So how did they get there? There is an advantage to keeping people poor and ignorant and divided. And our theater company puts an end to that. And we deal with them out of love. And when these kids see that these famous actors, and we've had Helen Mirren and Judy Taymor and lots of brilliant British actors and American actors, college professors who work with these kids one-on-one, it makes them turn on what I call their heart light. There's something inside me. Somebody sees me, and they put all that gang stuff down. Because all people want, if you look at, I'm a college professor, so I'm boring, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, maybe you ran into that in college. The first one after having, food and air is belonging. Mm-hmm. People just want to belong. So I'm not going to demonize the gang culture, because the gang culture is our failure as a community to deal with the needs of children, and they're going to belong somewhere. So if you don't get them hooked on something, somebody will get them hooked on something else. And those that control the money are not of their community. Gang, drugs, and all that. Those kids, don't really benefit. They will for a while until they're arrested. And then there's that whole, the benefit of putting people in jail. I have, because of I work for Congress and work for the Assembly, I have more fun being a director and a costume designer. But, if a gang child from the inner city gets put in jail and they're considered serial predators and they're really horrible, 4 guards will guard them 24 hours a day, and they're locked in a cell and they only get out an hour. 4 people earning $80,000 to guard this one kid that didn't have a mom or didn't get enough what they needed to be human. So there's money to be made in our community failure. And that's why getting people to understand about love, about human rights, about the arts, about giving, about community makes our company really valuable. And we've been doing it for 10 years, our anniversary.
Yeah. Which is absolutely fantastic. I think you're absolutely right. The need of belonging is something that is so fulfilled by community theatre. And I could see Erika's face getting energized as she was listening to some of what you were saying there. Just before we talk about the stuff that Erika's been doing with the Limelight Theatre and all of the various podcasts that she works with too. I do want to say that if you have been inspired by anything that you've heard so far, either from Melanie or from Erika or from Mai as well, please do join our live Q&A, which we're going to have right here in the Zoom room. To join us, you just need to be at kingdom1000.com or worldstorytellingcafe.com and click join the story. You won't be shown publicly, so please don't be shy. Come and join us in here. We'll only be able to see your questions if you type them into the little chat column, and we'll try to get through as many as you can, whether you have a question for Melanie or Erika about community theatre and what you could maybe be doing in your local area. Melanie's mentioned a couple of times about the importance of educating about human rights, and that is what our charity Youth for Human Rights International have been doing. We had Mary on a few weeks ago. And while you're at kingdom1000.com or worldstorytellingcafe.com, you'll notice there's a little button there to make a donation. If you do that, every single penny that you donate will be going to Youth for Human Rights International to help get these really important messages out there. And it's all about trying to share it with as many people as possible. It's equality for all, it's arts for all. And I say arts for all because I think that is something that you're going to be talking to us about. Am I right, Erika?
Yes. Melanie, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to listen to you and all the work that you've been doing. You talk about your company celebrating 10 years. My second home, which is Queen's Park Arts Centre and the Limelight Theatre in Aylesbury, Queen's Park celebrates its 40th anniversary this year. And the ethos that was started behind a wonderful man called Malcolm Thackeray, an artist, was arts for all. So he developed Queen's Park Arts Centre to be a place at the hub of community where people could celebrate the arts, participate in the arts, learn from the arts. And again, the ethos behind it has always arisen from like a mentorship. So the workshops, they have got over 40 workshops, needlework, lace making, woodwork, artists, musicians, actors, writers, directors. And the way in which they work is quite often you will have volunteer tutors, so people who are experts in their own field, giving their time to teach, to mentor up and coming, doesn't matter on age, doesn't matter on gender, race, disability. They've even hosted theatre companies and dance companies that are for disabled people. There was Doorways Dance that I taught with myself. There is Jigsaw Theatre Company, which is purely for disabled adults and adults with special needs. We have a dance school there at the moment, the Susan Diane School of Dance, and they have their own workshops for children with special needs, which I believe is called No Limits. And this ethos has grown throughout 40 years. Sorry, I get very, very excited because I love this place so much. And for me, growing up as an actor, I literally call it my second home because for theatre in particular, I know Melanie was saying that in a lot of community places, you have to pay like God knows how much money to be a part of an Amdram society. We don't have that either. My sort of repertory experience, if you like, as an actor was being able to work alongside professionals from a very, very young age. And how theatre works in particular through Queen's Park is that you have working alongside upcoming writers, directors, and actors together. So you learn from people who have been working professionally throughout their careers, and it's a gift that I was very, very privileged to be able to have, to be able to work alongside these people, and you watch them and you learn and you go. And so the ethos of the centre, providing accessibility, diversity and community. They are currently looking for a diversity officer. If anyone would like to get involved, they want to broaden their range as much as possible. So please do have a look up at the wonderful work that Queen's Park does.
Absolutely. Did you ever get mentored in ventriloquism, Erika? Because we had a moment there where you, I think you still are, talking without moving your lips.
Oh, hooray. Wonderful.
I think we've got you fully back with us now.
My face there, but hopefully you got most of that.
We heard all of it, but like I said, there were quite a few moments where you were ventriloquizing. So demonstrating all of your abilities, I'm sure. That is absolutely fantastic, though, everything that you've said there. For those who are interested in that diversity job, the Queen's Park Centre is in Aylesbury, which is that Buckinghamshire? Or Hertfordshire?
It is Buckinghamshire. It's about halfway between Oxford and London. Buckinghamshire.
But I love the fact that you've got professionals coming in to help there as well. For a lot of the societies around the country, I know it's very hard. Like again, Melanie, you were saying part of the costs involved is actually finding the venue to be able to put something on. And I know that there are lots of societies who don't have a very close relationship with a venue, or they may feel they do, but then there's like a management change at the venue and it can shatter everything. And all the societies that I know of in Cambridge do charge a fee because you have to pay for covering your own insurance when you go into those theatres. But it is really wonderful then to see that Queen's Park Centre, which is this professional body, are trying to give back to the community in as much as they can, and foster that really nurturing environment. That really is wonderful. Can you also talk a little bit about the voice artistry that you do, because that is also very community based, isn't it?
Yeah, I've done. What have I done? Lots of different things. I've done stuff. I've done storytelling. I've done everything from children's storytelling with yourself to I suppose what I'm most known for as a voice actor is right at the other end of the scale, which is horror podcasting, and I've used that as well. Through sort of storytelling, I've worked at libraries, and then also again at the Limelight, doing sort of storytelling and museums. I find that stories and art, being able as a voice actor, being able to bring words to life. I love listening to Melanie talk about language and Shakespeare, because again, that gets me very, very excited as well. And stories are, they are our oldest, oral stories. It's one of our oldest traditions. And again, it's, going back to Homer, or people reading around speaking around a campfire. Telling stories is a wonderful way of bringing a community together. We can all share in a hero's journey. So yeah, the work that I have been doing with podcasting and voice acting has been wonderful, being able to do all of that. And
how did you? I've just realised, sorry, that you talk a lot about Homer. I'm guessing that was something you studied, right? Was that at university level?
I did. Not at university. I did classics at A level, but then also just in general sort of theatre stuff. doing that. I remember doing a workshop with some young kids and trying to, get them excited about things. And with when it comes to Shakespeare, a lot of kids kind of go, oh, Shakespeare. And I try and not tell them I don't mention the name, don't mention the S word. And I do a thing where I do what I call comic book Shakespeare, which is I take the story and I divide it up into 5 parts. And then I get the kids to make it like a comic book, like a live action comic book. And Romeo and Juliet is a fantastic one because there's lots of fighting, there's lots of death, which kids seem to really enjoy. Or with 6-year-olds, you do A Midsummer Night's Dream because they get to say the word bottom a lot. And kids find that hilarious. So and who gets changed into a donkey? Bottom. And who does the Queen of the Fairies like? Bottom. And yeah, kids really love that. And I love if they get engaged in the story, then the language, they don't worry about that so much on top of that.
So it's just marvelous that we have such an erudite panel here in the one forum. Both of you who have clearly really studied your art. You have such a great passion for it. And it's wonderful seeing how that passion has sort of meant that you are part of these really strong community-based theatres. Because it is often called Amdram. I think for a long time I thought of it as Amdram. It was when I started meeting all sorts of, I made some of my best friends through the community theatre in Cambridge. I met my fiance through that same community theatre. That's when I sort of thought, you can't really call this Amdram because that presents the wrong picture, really. That sort of puts it substandard somehow. Whereas I think calling it community theatre sort of accentuates it in a way. Would you agree?
I think it definitely brings it to like people who hear about the old sort of Amdram. Yes, there is a bit of a stigma attached to that, I think, whereas the original meaning of it was for the love of. You love it, you are passionate about it, that's why you want to do it. Whereas community, and a lot of societies now have to branch out and do more. So community theatre as a phrase seems to encompass outreach, education, as well as performance as well. So I think it's a better phrase, definitely.
And there seems to be education wrapped up in the work that both of you are doing. We're going to be seeing very soon a trailer for InnerCity Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, which was shot entirely on Zoom because of the pandemic, I guess. And that wasn't your necessarily medium of choice, was it, Melanie?
Oh, no. We had just made a contact with Val Kilmer. He has this wonderful studio, and he said, okay, I love Shakespeare. We don't have a home. The theaters, we're pop-up, gyms, whatever, schools are not always positive towards outside groups, and that's sad. So we were in rehearsals. We had designed all the costumes because my costumer that helped me with this had a job for Disney because we really do a lot of mentoring. And I knew he was going to be leaving for Budapest. So we said, okay, we have a cast. Let's measure everybody. Got all the costumes done. Got all the costumes made. COVID came. We had to close it down. So everybody was crying and whining. What are we going to do? And I said, okay, let's rehearse on Zoom. And surely by March or April, we'll be able to perform live. That never happened. So we saw a group in London. Someone sent us this link to a group called The Show Must Go On. And they were doing Romeo and Juliet on Zoom. I was like, okay, if they can do it, we can do it. And then we started playing with the costumes, and we were looking, that doesn't look too good, in your living room. So then we started to do virtual backgrounds. We had lots of tech people, the kids, the young people were great. And so we did virtual backgrounds with our costumes, and we discovered all the joys of Zoom. First of all, I am eternally grateful for Zoom because many of our students were college students, and when the pandemic came, they had to go home. So our LA-based cast had people in Montana, in Idaho, in Utah, in Atlanta, in Chicago. So being on Zoom, they didn't have to quit. We could still do it. But Zoom has problems that I think they'll fit.
We've experienced a few of them today, to be fair, haven't we?
If you move too much, your arms disappear, and certain colors don't work on Zoom. And we had to do a lot of research with a lot of the Veronica Rodriguez. Love her. She's the world's greatest stage mom, and she took on the job of finding virtual backgrounds. So our whole production is Romeo and Juliet in the original Elizabethan, cut for length, but not edited. You know, we don't do Romeo and Jim shorts and all the abominations that happen in the United States. I don't know about you Brits, but people decide that they can write better than Shakespeare. So they take the plot.
We do get that occasionally as well. Don't worry. I think anybody thinks it's because Shakespeare is out of copyright, and it's a name that they love to play with.
Right, and I think it's insulting. You lose the benefit. University of Essex in your neighborhood said that doing Shakespeare affects brain function. That because the language syntax is not normal, it increases synapses in the brain. College professor, again, sorry, boring stuff. But the reason you do Shakespeare is to celebrate the language. And I, as a professor, I know that when my children get to college, they're going to have to know Shakespeare because it's the #2 literary illusion. All of my students graduate from high school, and about 85% go to four-year colleges. Certain percentages go into other things. I don't visit anybody in jail, and I have one baby now, but mom and dad were married. So when you hang in this a long time, you get little kids. So Shakespeare,
it's brilliant.
So beautiful, you know.
Yeah, I think you've opened up the other really big thing that that community theatre allows is it allows the education, it allows the passing on of this rich language, and with the mentoring that you've already mentioned, and the bit of direction to help people really settle into that imaginative world. The imagination is so important for helping human beings to develop. I mean, Erika, you've mentioned about how storytelling is one of the ways that we educate. It is so powerful because it's how we experience our day-to-day lives. Narrative is the most natural thing to us. It is an important part of our learning. And so if you immerse young people in a world which is rich in the imagination, you are going to see their abilities and their capabilities and their ambitions as well all start to go up and up and up as their imagination does as well. We're going to have a chance to see some of what Melanie has been discussing in action in just a little moment. Do remember though that if you've got any of your own questions for Melanie and Erika, the only way that you can get those to us is to join us in here in the Zoom room, which you can get to by visiting kingdom1000.com or worldstorytellingcafe.com and clicking join story. By doing that, you'll come in here. No one will see you, so it doesn't matter what you're wearing. Just pop in here and stick your question in the chat, and we'll hope to have some time for Melanie and Erika to answer them. Right now, though, I'm very pleased to share with you the trailer for the world premiere of InnerCity Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet.
Come hither, nurse. What is yon gentleman?
His name is Romeo, and a Montague, the only son of your great enemy.
My only love sprung from my only hate, too early seen unknown and known too late. Prodigy's birth of love is to me that I must love a loathed enemy.
Zoom recording, Romeo and Juliet, Act 1, Scene 5, Episode 3, page 11, take 8A3. Script supervisor out, and you can call it.
Action.
She'll not be hit with Cupid's arrow, she hath Dian's wit. And in strong proof of chastity well armed, love's weak childish bow, she lives uncharmed.
Romeo! The love I bear thee can afford no better term than this. Thou art a villain.
Oh, Romeo, Romeo. Where art thou, Romeo? Deny thy father, and refuse thy maid. Or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet.
Come, cordial, not poison. Go with me to Juliet's grave, where I must use thee.
Oh, when the sun sets, the air doth drizzle dew. But for the sunset of my brother's son, it rains down right.
I beg for justice, which thou, prince, must give. Romeo must not live.
And cut. Okay, that was a take.
Wonderful. And we're going to pop the link to share the full, I think it is the full one, isn't it, Melanie, that we're going to be showing the link for.
We want to thank Jose Pina, who is a professional editor who took all of these. It took us about 10 weeks to shoot all the scenes.
Wow.
Lots of problems with weather and internet. And I'm so proud of the kids. Half of these kids have never done a play before. Our Romeo is 15 and our Juliet is 14. And we had kids as young as 11. And then some of our yeomans who've been with the theater company for a while took on the adult parts. And we just, because I never disappoint the kids ever, because they live in a world where maybe daddy's supposed to pick you up and he never shows. So they know that we are stable and we are committed and that we love them and we listen to them. And so we do what it takes. And, you know, not only that, we don't charge them anything and we pay them. We pay them the lowest possible equity rate. So every child, even if they're 11, at the end of the show, we paid per performance, which is not a lot. Out here, it's like $18, so it's not like a bunch of money, but that's what the new equity contract is. So we spend our money raising funds to pay the young people, and also to pay for sets and costumes. And I believe in the pageantry that Aristotle talked about in the Poetics. You know, you got to have plot and character, but you also must have music and spectacle and costumes and stuff. Coming out of communities where they don't do plays, they've never seen anything like it. And they begin to understand. And we do have a project that'll start again after COVID with fourth graders. We take over an entire fourth grade in the school, and we do, a play that's edited for length, but not for text. And we do a lot of self-directed work groups. We'll put the kids together, divide up the prologue, give them a whole bunch of dictionaries and say, tell us what this means. And when they're challenged like that, the teachers, this will never work, in some of tough schools in South Central. And it always works because kids will live up to your expectations. And I let them run the tech too. We raise money for wireless mics. My last stage manager was a girl named LaShawn. She was 11 and she's like, ready on cue too. All right, you people, let's get straight. 10 minutes to curtain. And
of course, what it is, it's everybody having, there's a role for everyone.
Everybody. If you don't want to act, you can do props.
Yeah.
We had some kids that are just terrible bad. One of our kids got in trouble for taking another kid and putting him in the basketball hoop. And so the principal, I see him in there, he's all upset. I said, what's wrong with you? And so I convinced the principal, instead of suspending him, sentencing him to Shakespeare. And he ended up being Oberon, and he loved it because he understood that. He's about to graduate. He graduated from high school this year, as a matter of fact, and we were looking to give him a party, but we couldn't, so we drove around the parking lot and stuff. But we're in there.
You've already gone a long way, Melanie, to answering, I think, one of the questions that has come in here in the Zoom Cafe about exactly how theatre can affect positive change. It is a bit of a spectacle. It does bring joy, but we're wanting that positive change to lead towards a world that respects all human rights. And Erika, I wanted to take the question to you and wondered if you could maybe explore that, because when you think of plays like Romeo and Juliet, it is a tragedy. It is quite bleak. I loved the fact that you still managed to keep the fights in there, even though it was a Zoom recording, Melanie. You had a way of making it work. But you think
we try.
you think you have so many examples, and we hear a lot in the papers about how seeing really depressing theatre, cinema, computer games that can generate the criminals of tomorrow. So what do you see as theatre's role in helping there be a positive change in the world?
I believe that theatre can teach you compassion and empathy. Oh, have you lost me again? Oh. No. I'm going to type it. Am I back?
Yeah, you are back. Are you? Did you hear the question?
I did, yes. I started whiffling away and then obviously I cut off.
Okay.
My answer was brilliant, by the way. It was absolutely fantastic. No, I truly believe that theatre can teach you compassion and empathy, which I think are human qualities that are really, really important and the world could do a lot more of. Being able to play different people, being able to try and step into a world that may be outside of your own. Compassion and empathy and understanding and the generosity that you get working in an ensemble. One of the things is, one of my personal bugbears as a director is selfish actors. I don't like that. Ensemble work, being part of a team where your sole purpose is to move forward together and having that shared cathartic experience with an audience as well. I mean, there is nothing like the magic of theatre. We can do anything. We can make you believe anything. We can go anywhere. We can raise ourselves above what we are. It's unique and wonderful. It truly is.
Absolutely. And you pointed out the empathy. Again, I think this is one of the real bits of magic that it brings. The fact that it shows you, doesn't it, that life comes in so many different perspectives. We can never truly grasp what someone else is thinking. And what theatre allows us to do is imagine for a moment that we can. And when we see the world from all of those different perspectives, it helps us to have that compassion, because suddenly everybody's opinion can be valid. It may
and all of the
actually
things,
have a reason behind it.
All of the things that you can find, it comes back to genuine human emotions that are universal and timeless. You know, if you talk about why is Shakespeare still relevant today? Because of that. There are human emotions, human thoughts, human processes, experiences that several hundred years later we can still acknowledge today, I think.
Folks, we started a little bit late today because of the gremlins at the start, but we still want to try and finish in good time. So there are some brilliant questions coming into the Zoom room now. I'm going to have to ask you for answers that are going to be way too short, I think. But one has been a very practical question. I guess there are going to be people coming into the Zoom room now wanting to know how to replicate some of your successes in their communities. And both of you have mentioned working with children. So there's a wonderful question here about what's the secret to successfully directing novice children who are coming into theatre for the first time, who maybe have what Erika described as, that idea of, hey, I'm an actor now, I can thoroughly show off, or maybe just be shy. What are your secrets?
I would say that for children who are shy or nervous, to let them play, to allow them, to give them the freedom. A rehearsal room should be safe. So what if you do like improvisational exercises or anything like that in a workshop environment, it needs to be safe. People shouldn't feel like they're making fun of or that they're doing it wrong. You know, there are better ideas of doing things, and you can kind of try and encourage them to understand that. But I think, first of all, to be able to allow them to play and explore, because quite often education in schools is very sort of rigid. And I've worked with kids where they're very, very nervous because, is this right? Do I do it right? It's like, it's your story. You make it up. You do what you like. It's your version. If you're doing a production, I would say that I'm also quite keen on understanding discipline within a stage, how you behave and what is expected of you. So your etiquette backstage, how you work with your fellow actors, and the respect that you give people as a whole within that ensemble, within that sort of family unit that you have on stage. So in a workshop environment, allow them to play. In a theatre environment, definitely encourage etiquette and a code of conduct, that how you expect people to respond to you.
And I think a lot of that can actually work with all ages, actually.
Yes.
How about you, Melanie? Do you agree with all of that? Is there anything you could add?
I do agree that it teaches compassion for us. It teaches community. And I don't see children. I just see actors and tell them, stepped into this, and you have this responsibility, and they all have mentors. They're either people that are assigned to be their mentors, they're older actors, and our younger kids are so, they're hilarious. They're just walking in with their little scripts, and we have certain expectations, and if anybody's falling, we get someone to help them. But I think playing is fun. I don't believe in pushing people into performances if they don't want to. But if they do want to, we make sure that they're successful. It was really funny with Romeo and Juliet because it's dealing with sex stuff and stuff, and so we're trying to find ways to explain it to them that make them feel comfortable. Our little Juliet, who's 14 and doing her first play, came in as a replacement for somebody. And I think if Romeo, sorry, Ben, had not moved to Montana, that might have been a real romance. But he had to move to Montana because of COVID. And Shakespeare is so well written. Once they understand the words, and we spend a lot of time on words, and they have mentors. And once they figure it out, I learned Shakespeare when I was in 3rd or 4th grade from my Nana. I don't see why these kids can't either. And we do all kinds of games and other things that give them the confidence that they can do it. Kids can do what you expect them to do.
Absolutely.
And beyond.
Kids and beyond.
Do Shakespeare at 4th grade. They're going to do it. And you know what amazes
sorry, Melanie, I want to make sure we have time for one last question, because it's a really important one. And there are so many questions coming in now. I'm sorry that we seem to have invited everybody in right at the last minute. But I think probably the most important question that we've got here for anybody who's wanting to get involved in a community theatre, maybe looking for one or trying to start one up, is how you get others to how you can sustain it, basically, because both of you have mentioned that the groups that you work with have some fantastic support. Melanie, you've mentioned Val Kilmer amongst many others. Obviously, Erika, you've mentioned the Queen's Park Centre helping. If you were to give some advice to anyone else thinking of getting into community theatre and wanting to make sure that it is something that can be sustained and that you get the community with you for however long you want to do it, what advice would you give?
Oh, it's hard. I'm not going to say it's not. It is very hard. Look at theaters that you like and see how you can get involved. Reach out to other people. A lot of people that work with us are not theater people. They're just caring people. Have a plan. Be organized. Be professional yourself. and give people opportunities. We have a wonderful actor, Stephen Van de Kooi. Stefan, he's correcting, I said his name wrong, Stefan Van de Kooi, who wanted to do a podcast. And so we set up podcasts. We have writers' workshops. We just work with other people. You don't have to reinvent the wheels. InnerCityShakespeare.org if you're in LA and you want to come and play. Even take tickets or sew costumes, whatever. But it's hard, and you can't be a dilettante about it. You have to be committed. I spend a lot of my own money because fundraising is hard. Nobody believes little Black and brown kids can do Shakespeare. But I have depended on the kindness of strangers and being committed. And then as a professional director, we study. We know our craft. 2 masters and a doctorate here, and lots of work. I know my craft. And so I bring that to the party. So there's a way you can get involved. Just reach out, go to theater companies. They'll always say, would you like to volunteer? Do that.
Fantastic. How about you, Erika? What advice do you have?
I think Melanie's pretty much covered it all very eloquently. Don't be afraid to get involved. If you're wanting to be involved on one side of it, and then if you're wanting to start something up as well, then yes, you do have to have pretty much a good business head on your shoulders, looking for support and sustainability. But yes, if it's something that you want to get involved yourself, don't be afraid, ask. And I'm sure many, many places are looking for people to be involved in whatever you can bring to the table.
Grand. How did you actually manage to get Val Kilmer's support, Melanie?
It was a gift. People know that Val has suffered from throat cancer. And our friend Brad Kopanek has been following our company for years. We're educators. Val opened the studio, and I said, and no is a vitamin. Just because they say no doesn't mean anything. I said, we don't have any place to go. He loves Shakespeare, and he said, well, come here. And he's given us rehearsal space, office, all kinds of support. We're shooting from Hell Mill Studios right now. Actors, artists are generous people. But you just have to be worthy and ask. And that's it. I don't know how we got Val Kilmer support. We just did.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you both. And thank you everybody who's coming into the Zoom room now with some absolutely wonderful questions here. I'm so sorry that we haven't got the time to answer them all, but I hope you've got a taste from the conversation that we've had here of just how amazing community theatre can be when it is in the hands of people like Melanie and Erika, and folks like the Queen's Park Centre. Shout out to Dario, who I think is still running it. Am I right? It's Sarah Lewis is the artistic director of the centre, and Dario is the creative producer and the driving force behind Unbound, which is I suppose you'd call it the in-house theatre company. Gotcha. But the centre itself, with a whole range of exhibitions and musicians, artists, writers, dancers, all of those in the very capable hands of Sarah Lewis. Folks, if you would like to put together any kind of celebration of equality, and you have absolutely flopped at the cooking that you tried with Manju's help, or the tailoring that you tried with Rebecca's, maybe you're struggling to record down your words as John taught us, or you're trying your first time with henna or artistry, as we got from Min and Sarah, Sally, then probably one of the easiest ways that you could celebrate the 1000th anniversary of equality is to find your nearest community theatre group or even set up your own, following the examples of Melanie and Erika here. And if you want to find one, another big shout out is to amdram.co.uk. That is a website where pretty much every single community theatre group in the country of the UK, I think, is subscribed to. And you will be able to find, as Melanie said, all sorts of different jobs within the world of community theatre. Technical, if you want to be in front of the scenes or behind the scenes. Who knows, you could even be the Zoom controller now, since that seems to be the way we're going. So we hope that you will get involved. If you do, please maybe take a little snippet and stick it at kingdom1000.com. That will enter you into our equality competition. It will also allow you to be there as a celebration of equality. If we are still able to go ahead and have our big open air celebration in 2021, then that will be one of the places that we go to curate that space. So if you have a group that is putting anything on and you want to show how equal your community theatre group is, put a little video of what you've been doing up at kingdom1000.com, and you could end up being part of that big festival. You could also end up winning yourself a book as well, just for putting something up there. And on that note, head to kingdom1000.com to find the link to InnerCity Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. We might even have a few links going up there from Unbound Theatre, Erika has mentioned. I hope we will. Right now, though, it only remains for me to say cheerio. Thank you again to our stunning guests, Melanie and Erika, and everybody who's here in Zoom. We hope to see you again next week. Cheerio, folks.
Bye.
I think you can just about see my hand now.
Thank you. Thanks for including us.